Hey, what up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Golf Parfection podcast. I'm joined here with my co-host Matt Souza and first guest Craig. You've seen him in previous episodes, so glad to have our first guest here. So this topic or this podcast is more, I guess, a source questions from my community on YouTube and Discord. And I just told him, hey, I'm going to be, with two teaching professionals. What are the things that you guys really want to know with this specific, experienced group? So there's going to be some spicy ones in here I can already see, but we'll start off with something a little bit easier. So one person said, specifically, I would be interested to know whether they think golf lessons can still be effective if the student does not have time to practice and only plays rounds on the course. So, I guess, what's your thought on that? Maybe Craig, you can go first, and then Matt, you can go after that.
I do think it's possible.
Okay.
I think you got to go about it in a different way.
Sure.
I think you need to, the introduction and the interview phase is the most important part. You need to understand what they really want, what they're willing to do or not do, and explain to them, the possibly the consequences or the slower progress based off of that.
Sure. No, yeah.
So, but sometimes, when you hear these people's stories of how busy they are, which is totally true, sometimes you can really push them and negotiate something a little realistic, like, getting a net in their backyard or something very simple. Because we're not looking to try and squeeze in, 200 balls on a Saturday. What we're looking for is consistency, and we're looking to keep things fresh. So, in my opinion, hitting 20 balls 4 days a week each day, in 10 minutes is a lot more productive, and you'll show more progress doing that than trying to squeeze it in on a Saturday.
God, I really liked how you framed it as like not totally writing off, like it is possible, but on top of that, you kind of have to negotiate and set expectations of what that can do for you in terms of like, hey, yeah, sure, I can get a lesson from you. Maybe they can pick it up really good. They're a really quick on the spot learner and can find some way to squeeze it in at home, like on the net. So I think that's a really good point is, negotiating the expectations of something like where this person is asking, hey, are lessons effective if I don't have enough time to practice all that much, which they can be, but the big asterisk around that is, a lot of things have to align pretty much.
Agreed. You're going to, if there's any reconstruction, it's going to be went about in a totally different way.
Got it. Matt, what's your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree with Craig. You've got to manage the expectations. We can't do this in an hour. If I could teach everybody how to play golf perfectly in an hour, there'd be a line around the block. Right? It takes more time from that. I'm not trying to sell a package for the sake of I just want to get more of your money. There's certain steps that we have to take, and then we have to build that foundation, and I can't move on until you've got this part. It's also, the same thing of saying like, I'll have people take a lesson and then want to take a lesson 3 days later. Unless I'm working on your chipping, or your putting, then please don't, because you're gonna pay me the same amount of money for me to tell you the same thing I told you 3 days ago, right? You haven't had enough time to build it, practice it, and get comfortable with it before we move on. Right. And it also, I have lessons that, again, we were talking about this earlier, where I go, hey, I need you to do this. And they say, oh, you need me to do that? And I'm like, yep, that was it. Like, that's fantastic. But I have other lessons where I'm like, taking the club a foot and a half back to a foot and a half forward spends an hour because they just can't grasp it. And we're explaining it 18 different ways until they can.
I see.
Right. And then working that. But that's, again, it's got to be that base. And that's where, doing things like Craig was saying, like giving inside the house homework, right? What are you doing? Can I put this, this club inside my belly button and kind of turn it, find a place in the house that you're not going to, piss off the wife, where you're just turning at, half to half. Sure. I always say that there's this area behind my couch that is right in between the couch and the dining room table that I can swing a wedge and it doesn't hit anything at all. Got it. But doing a lot of mirror work, right? Do the mirror work, see those positions, feel those positions. Right? Those are the sorts of things that are going to help you develop. You don't need hitting golf balls helps, but like working the motions and feeling the motion. So if we as coaches can get creative and say, hey, this is what I need you to do, feel like you're, like I have a 15-pound, like one of those smash ball things, right? And I'm like feeling like we're like turning and toss, like building momentum, shifting it one way, shifting it the other to create momentum, right? Because all I'm trying to for you to do is one, explain it in a way that you understand it conceptually, right? Because if I can do that, I always say, like, look, the better positions you are, magically, the better mistakes that you make, right? Your mistakes aren't, 20 yards right, 20 yards left. It's 5 yards right, 5 yards left, right? So the better we are at explaining it conceptually and giving them ways to get there, I think whether it be one lesson a month or one lesson every 2 weeks or one lesson every 3 months, you've got to understand what to do and understand how to practice that.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, there could be, potentially some success if people just take lessons and then mostly just play on the course. Got to set that expectation. But at the end of the day, golf is so hard as it is. And like, if you can't put in the time, then the expectations, I would say normally is like, you're not going to see so much improvement. That's just, kind of what I personally believe. But that being said, speaking of training, the advent of Bryson and speed, has brought along a lot of this speed training where you get like the weighted shafts and, you have these programs to really like pick up swing speed just by swinging these heavy, weighted clubs. What are your guys' take on that whole phenomenon? Is it beneficial? And, it's not going away anytime soon. So what is your overall take on that? So Craig, what do you think about the speed training in general?
I mean, it's simple. That's the direction this game is going. Guys like Brooks, Bryson, or even Rory, who have kind of changed, what we've done with the game as far as the distance stuff. Some people don't like it, but you can't fault the guys for putting in the work. It's no one's problem. They did the work, and some of them are. Some of them have gone downhill from it. Like, Rory, when he started working out, he went downhill a little bit, then he came back. But Bryson, what he's done is very impressive. But I think depending upon the player, there's certain, things that need to be worked on first, fundamental wise, before you get into, ground forces and speed training and all that stuff. Because if you can't, people can't jump straight to doing something full speed. They'll never feel it and they'll never get it right.
Right. So it's more like establishing that base before you can't just pick up these speed sticks off the shelf and then boom, start trying to swing harder and then gain that. Because if you can't apply it in an effective way, you're not going to benefit from that.
Agreed.
Got it. Okay. So Matt, advent of speed training, what do you think with this latest phenomenon and these speed training, tools?
I think Bryson changed the game, right? Tiger originally changed the game. Bryson now changed the game. It's fun to watch, right? It gives something people to talk about. It draws viewership to watch these events week in, week out. And again, you look at the numbers. It's like, how much easier is golf if I'm hitting 9-iron versus 7-iron? Right? Yeah. What are the percentages of me hitting? And even if you don't even hit the green, or like if you don't even hit the fairway, if you're chopping pitching wedge out of the rough or taking 6-iron from the fairway, I'll take the pitching wedge out of the rough. Right? It's just a shorter distance. And now with technology, there's a good chance that you can still get that ball to check and stop coming out of the rough. Right? It's just the way it is. It's always going to be somebody working harder, looking for that advantage. And that's exactly what this is. Like, what's the advantage? Oh, you got bigger and stronger. One of the things, and again, golf has changed over the last 20 years of how we teach things, and I'd always use the example of if I'm standing on top of a 6-foot ladder and I'm 6 foot tall and I have to drop a 5-pound weight or a 10-pound weight, which one you want me to drop? Mass plus speed at impact. Mass plus speed at impact. That's going to make a difference.
Got it. Yeah. So, I definitely agree that speed is – everyone's kind of getting behind it. But I think to your point, Craig, definitely you got to apply it in the correct way or it's going to be detrimental more than beneficial.
I agree. And I do think, what I agree with what Rory was saying about kind of the USGA and what they're looking at with the equipment and golf courses. Like they're looking at through this tiny little window and they're not looking at the big picture. And, I think 0.0001% of golfers play on the PGA Tour. So you're not going to get these equipment companies to, dial back their technology.
Right.
And if you did dial back the ball, golfers in their 60s, 70s, 80s wouldn't enjoy the game that much. So, I don't know, maybe dial back the ball just for the tour, or
sure. Yeah, like make a different little set of restrictions or rules for the point zero zero.
Sure. My point is, I do get a little tired sometimes of seeing, guys have 9 irons and wedges into every hole.
Sure. Yeah. I agree. It doesn't make for the most exciting golf per se to watch on TV. So that being said, next question. I thought this was very, very interesting. So how do you go about teaching a student who has body restrictions and is not able to get these optimal swing positions? So I think this is a perfect, a question for you, because both of you teach. And then, what if someone does have that, kind of not disabled, but that restriction? Do you how to best go about teaching your methodologies with that restriction, knowing they have that kind of ailment?
There's always adjustments that could be made. I have people that come in on a regular basis all the time, young all the way to mid to older ages, that say they can't turn, they have no mobility. But there's always adjustments that we can be made. It starts with the setup, foot flaring, resetting the pelvis into external rotation, stuff like that. There's other ways to get them into positions without hurting them to make them a better player. There's certain adjustments we could be made. I get probably the most common one is, bilateral hip replacements, prosthetic legs. This is a very tight muscle right here. You actually got a lot of my students, I need to actually see how far they can move it back. Because some of them can't really go past this angle. So there's certain adjustments we have to be made with the pitch of the shaft, the grip, but there's ways to work around it.
God, that's I didn't really think. I feel like I'm fortunate enough to be, I guess, flexible enough to get into some of the positions that Matt will tell me and coach me on. But I didn't really think about how not everyone has that capability, and so it is positive to hear that. You've probably seen it all, right? You've taught so many people, you're able to make those micro adjustments to get them to successfully succeed with your swing that you're teaching them. So that's great to hear. So Matt, same thing, if someone comes in with something like a mobility issue, how do you approach that?
I really think, Craig hit it out of the park. That's exactly what we're trying to do, is create some compensation for what they're lacking. And some of it's going to be, and again, it comes down to that interview process in the beginning. It's okay, sure, what sort of injuries, what do we have? Are we working with a wrist that doesn't flex all the way, right? Are we working with a bad shoulder that doesn't go above, I can't take my elbow up, a certain height, right? So we're always kind of making adjustments to say, okay, we can't do this, then that adjustment needs to mean we need to do this, right? So we can compensate for that. It just, again, allows them to get back to the ball a little bit easier. But sometimes we run into people that say, I can't get this elbow to the inside, and I go, okay, you think you can't, right? But if you do this and this and this, I'm like, whoa, I can do it, right? So it's some of that is there as well, but sometimes it's the prosthetic leg. It's working, okay, how much pressure can we put on that leg? Show me. Okay, how much turn? Put an alignment stick across their chest. Okay, how far back can you turn before you get to pain? Right? Because I never want to put you in a position where you're going to, potentially injure yourself, or all we're going to create is pain.
Got it. So maybe quick off of that, to the both of you, you were talking about hip replacements and maybe a prosthetic leg. What do you most commonly see as the in terms of a body restriction? What do you see most commonly?
Probably the shoulder.
Shoulder? Okay, interesting. Okay.
This shoulder, when it moves internally and externally, there's not a lot of room right here to make the shoulder go more external behind me.
I see.
So that's always a test that I like to do for certain people, especially people that have a tendency to get it too internal.
Got it. So they can't rotate it back enough?
Correct.
Got it. So I feel like if people are listening right now, they're probably all doing this, trying to see how far back they can go, because that's, I guess, when you're in that position, there's a lot of rotation going on there. Yes. So Matt, what about you? Is that shoulders too, or is it something else?
You see a lot of shoulder pain, right? Or the elbow, right? And again, I call it a dig, right? If you have diggers that just straight go down and get it, that vibration coming up is going to affect that. It's going to affect that elbow. So learning how to, pick balls a little bit more clean, come in a little bit, everybody is like, oh, I need this steep attack angle. Doesn't mean I need you to come straight down on top of it, because that's just going to create a force that you can't flatten out late, right? I can still come into the golf ball at the correct attack angle if my weight is in the correct position, but still feel like I'm coming in a little bit lower and I'm exiting a little bit lower, right? I try to do that to help with the elbow. The shoulder is the same thing as, are you doing, because again, if you were to throw a ball, your elbow goes external, internal, but you have some people that can get about maybe 3 inches back each side, right? So it's getting how much flexibility in those shoulders, and then what is your workout routine? And that could, when we start talking about more competitive players, like, what's your workout routine? Who are you seeing? What are you doing? What are you doing to stretch? Are you doing any sort of yoga? What are we doing to build on the swing you already have? Just get better overall, just body as well, not just the golf swing, right? So if I can learn how to stretch my body out, more and get a bigger turn, it's going to be better for my long-term golf swing, as long as I'm not, again, putting myself in a painful position, right? If I have stronger legs, I'm going to be able to push into the ground and push out of the ground harder, right? I'm going to be able to sling that golf club faster, right? And that's when it comes, like, natural talent nowadays only takes you so far. Everybody is putting their bodies to work, right?
Yeah. All right. So, talk about work and building. And I got a question asking, like, hey, once you get a student, do you normally, tweak? Like, I guess the question here is this. Are you guys more inclined to work with the swing a student has, or do you guys prefer to do a complete tear down and rebuild? And I think you guys kind of already mentioned, like, it all kind of depends on that first interview and everything. But, like, say you have a guy that comes in and he shoots, like, high 80s or something. Are you more inclined to, and they don't fit your methodology? Are you more inclined to kind of tweak his swing to score a little better, or is it like, boom, let's tear it down and go into your guy methodology? So, Craig, what's your thought on that?
So, we all know this is not cookie cutter stuff.
Right.
Okay?
Absolutely.
You have coaches that, there are some coaches that, do teach a certain way and try and apply it to everyone, which is fine. You have certain coaches that, use different methods, whether it's a Mike Bender method or a Dana Dahlquist or a George Genkus method. But, when I first started coaching, I was, trying to get everyone to swing the club, with the way I preferred it should be swung. But that's just not how it works, is what I've learned. And I think in the interview process, like what we were talking about, is you need to give them more time, watch them more, see how they're swinging the club. Okay, don't just chase pictures on the camera. See what's functioning, see what's not functioning. How many misses were there, and how bad were they? Not everyone needs an overhaul. Sometimes adjustments need to be made, but not everyone needs an overhaul. I got students, like you said, that shoot in the 80s that don't want to lose quite what they have. So, maybe we just make a little adjustment and see how it works out. Sometimes it takes multiple adjustments. Then I got guys that say, well, I'm shooting 120 right now. It's not terrible. But, I just don't want to do that, or I don't, I can't do that or whatever. And or I learned this on YouTube or whatever. And it's like, lose what? What do you have to lose?
Sure.
120.
Sure.
Why are you here?
Yeah. So, you mentioned YouTube, which that will be a question that comes up a little later for sure. But Matt, what's your approach when it comes to, like, you got a person coming in? Like, I know from what I've experienced, you want to get people into a certain methodology that you teach, but tear down versus, kind of just working on what they already have. What's your thought there?
Ultimately, I want to make it as easy as possible for them. Right. Sure. So if I explain it to them and say, here's where you need to be, but if you're not here, here's the adjustment you need to make. You choose.
Got it.
Right. So if you can continue to do this, understand, here's the adjustment that you need to make. And maybe that's enough. Right. But when you're teaching, it's easier to get a guy that shoots 120 to make him shoot 90 or 85. Right. It's really hard to get the person that shoots 75 to shoot 68.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. There's talent. There's much more talent because you're dealing with just so many more minute changes that need to be made. Right. It's just, but again, it's what system I don't really like, yes, I teach a very rotational golf swing, right? I find it to be that's the easiest way for me to return the club back to impact as much as possible, right? Like the classic dip and flip is what we see a lot. And it's just explaining to them, like, look, if this club's here, how do you get it back to the ball? If this club's here, now how you get it back to the ball? Like, oh, that makes more sense, right? I want it to, and that's more like I don't want to give a lesson and me sit there for an hour and go, you did it right, you did it wrong, you did it right, you did it wrong. I'm going to explain to you what happens. We're going to work on it. I'm going to show you the drills that you need to do, and then I'm going to send you out to get it done, right? Because it does me no good to be like, yep, that was wrong. Nope, that was right. We're going to give these feels, and then we're going to kind of build. Here's what I want you to do, and then I want you to go practice this. When you got it, you come back. Now, I want you to get it by the time you leave, right? I do, right? I'm working really hard because, as Craig knows, we take this personally, right?
Sure,
we take this personally.
And you guys should take pride, of like people you are teaching. I mean, that's pretty cool. Like, I'm sure you guys both have successful students, right? And so it's like, that's super cool, right? And I think that's awesome to see. And you guys definitely should, lay claim to some of that. Absolutely. So.
And this guy right here is a champ. I mean, listening to him talk about the golf swing, it's incredible. The guy's got so much knowledge, right? That I go like, oh, okay, yeah, right. We didn't have this sort of technology when I started teaching. It was like, okay, I'm going to watch you, from behind, and I'm going to see you hit golf balls. But again, like with what it is now, you can make so many changes, and you can get to a position in a score faster because we're able to dissect it and break it down in a completely different manner than what we did before.
Absolutely. So yeah, just to plug here, Craig's Instagram will be in the description on this video. Also, he teaches at the Golf Spot. So yes, we are in the Golf Garage, but yeah, Craig teaches out of the Golf Spot. So that will be also linked in the description below. So that being said, I think the big topic here, and then this is kind of interesting because everyone who plays golf and, consumes golf content knows about like content creator YouTube lesson goers, but I don't think we don't always get the opportunity to ask people who actually who coach in the studios, who aren't doing those YouTube tutorials and stuff, what they really think their opinion is. And I know there's going to be some colorful responses here. We talked about this previously before we started to hit the record button. So let's go Matt first, and then we'll let Craig have the floor at the end. So Matt, I think we've talked about this before. Your take on some of those YouTube golf instructors specifically. Do you guys pay attention to them or watch them? And then, have you learned from them?
There's a lot of great content out there if you know how to apply it to what you're doing. But if you do not, you can start getting down a rabbit hole. Like, every 7 Instagram, as I'm swiping up, I'm going to be like, fix your slice in 20 swings or less. Like, really? Right? Like, it's just, it's a blanketed, but it is. It's made for the masses. It's made for the viewers, and it may help you. Maybe it's a swing thought that helps you, right? But if you're coming to see a coach, trust in that coach to get you where you need to be. Right? And if you have a relationship with your coach where you can, text them or email them and say, hey, here's what I'm doing since my last lesson, and then we can kind of review what we did and say, okay, remember, here's your tendency. We really need to work down this. Because there's plenty of times where, we give a lesson and then they go home and maybe because it just didn't click the first time, they're scrolling through YouTube videos trying to fix something. And then they come back in and they're like, wow, I watched this YouTube video and it said I should do this. Right? And it may be a completely different system or what, maybe it doesn't fit what they're doing, or it's not at the right time. It's building that foundation, right? As we build, we can start moving up. And we're on step 1, you're already trying to do step 8. Right?
I see.
It goes back, like we're teaching and I'm like, okay, half to half at the same tempo back and the same tempo through. And I will tell everybody, this is what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. You're going to get halfway back and this thing's you're going to swing it like it's coming out of a cannon, right? Like it's just tempo related. Let's work that position. But getting back, you got to trust your coach.
Got it. So yeah, I think, I think the way to combat that maybe I don't know if you guys do that. Do you guys have people that you kind of want to guide some of your students to, if they were to consume some of this content, like that kind of fit the methodology that you're teaching? Or
people like validation,
Sure.
right? So if I am saying, okay, here's what I need you to do, and then I come across a video on Instagram of a high level instructor that says, here's what I need you to do, it's pretty much the same exact thing, I'll go, I'm going to forward this to you. So you can see that I'm not the one that came up with this crazy idea for you to do this, right?
Sure.
Because it takes so much trust to say, I was doing it this way and now I'm going to do it this way, and I'm hoping I'm going to get better.
So I think the main takeaway is trust the system, work in that system, and like the worst thing you can do is like try to pick up tips from other people who aren't teaching the same methodology, because that's going to really mess with you there.
And it may be the same methodology, but it's not at the right time.
Yeah, timing.
It's just not, it's not at the right time to learn that particular move.
Got it. Okay.
Right?
Okay, so that being said, Craig, your thoughts on the whole teachings of YouTube, and I know we were talking about it a little bit beforehand, but yeah, what is the general consensus that you have around, you know, all that content about the golf swing online and on Instagram and YouTube?
Well, you know, Matt and I both know, whether it's a new student or it's a current student, like our phones blow up. Hey, I saw this video. Like, you agree? You think this? Because, you know, like Matt said, they want validation. You know, and that's why sometimes students bounce around coaches. They need to know that, you know, 5 different coaches said the same thing to kind of give them some validation or confidence, or what those 5 or even 10 plus coaches they've gone to see have in common. I do think there's some phenomenal stuff on YouTube. You know, what a lot of coaches are doing, and what Eric Cagrono and Andy Patno are doing with their online academies, and all those guys. You know, there's some very good stuff that they do. But like Matt said, their golf swing is all, as we all know, it's cause and effect. Okay, so
Yep.
you know, you're not going to fix your early extension by putting a chair behind your butt when your club's up the top, no depth, across the line, face wide open. You're not fixing the root cause. So you have to, like Matt said, know how to apply that drill and if it applies to you. Okay, there's a sequence, there's an order of operations here that it needs to be fixed. You know, it could be a setup thing, it could be a loading thing, it could be a pressure thing. You know, it's our job to figure that out. It also depends upon the student.
Right. So like the likelihood, I think the consensus here, the likelihood of you picking up some kind of tip, and like unfortunately, like the problems of golf can be really generalized because you can hit a slice. So you type in, how do I fix my slice? And the likelihood of that specific video addressing your particular swing methodology that you guys teach at the right time is very unlikely. Right. So I think that's like the main thing that was the, you know, that I was trying to, you know, that's what we've been talking about. So yeah. So anything else, like, do you tend to tell your students to stay away from that kind of stuff then, or yeah, is that
no? I think that like with the validation thing, you know, there might be something that we talked about where, you know, something on YouTube or that instructor might have explained it like in a little bit of a different way, or gave a different presentation to it. You know, maybe a different drill. You know, I have no problem with that. As long as, you know, if I've explained to them and made it clear the actual goal we're trying to accomplish and achieve. I have no problem with them doing that. And if they did, they can come back and talk to me about it, or send it to me, and we'll talk more about it.
Got it. Do you, both of you, do you find it more often than that they like, you'll teach them a lesson and then they come back and then they're doing something different, and then they like, oh, I found something online? Does that happen quite a bit?
I get that on the first lesson, sometimes series. Well, so-and-so said this. Like, why would... Well, then go see them. See you later.
True. Yeah. I mean, like,
go see them.
It's tough. I mean, like we put in hard work to get you to a certain position, and I'm trying to give you what I can give you in this hour, right? But not too much, but just enough to be like, okay, here you go, right? And if you come back to me 2 weeks later and I'm like, where to go? Where did it go? Where did the good work that we put in go? And they're like, well, I watched this YouTube video. And I'm like, okay, that's step 7. You know, that doesn't quite work for you yet, right? Or maybe it may not work for you at all, right?
True.
But
True.
it's up to us to, again, like, I'd rather have them send me the link and say, hey, does this apply to me? And I can go, yeah, that does. Notice how he said this and this, and it kind of aligns with what we're doing now. Or I can say, not there yet, we need to concentrate on this, right? Because you can be in the middle of a lesson and I'm working on one thing, I'm like, well, what if I do this? No, that's not what we're working on right now. There's an order, like Craig said, there's an order to the way that we need to do things in order to get you. My job, like, my goal is to get you better the fast as I can. Is it going to hurt me financially because you're not going to take lessons every week for 7 years? Yes, but I'd rather have you go out and tell your friends, like, I got super good, super fast, right? So I'd have more people doing that, right? And you feel better about your game and I feel better about your game than not.
Right. So I mean, I think both of you touched on it. So like, do you guys get a lot of your students sending you like YouTube stuff and asking their opinions on it? Like, it sounds like that's something that happens quite a bit. I didn't think that'd be something that would happen as much. Like people, because I guess I don't do this to you, Matt, but like, I guess people do send you stuff to look at then, huh?
They do occasionally. I mean, I think some of them actually like do it and don't tell us, or because they don't want us to hear it, or they don't want to hear it or anything, which is fine. There's no doubt it happens, but it's not a big deal to me. If they want to ask me about it, then I'll answer the question.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, very interesting. And yeah, I just feel like, and then the qualifications or the imposter syndrome or whatever, I just feel like you have to have quite the confidence to put stuff out there. Yeah, I don't know. I just see some people always giving tips online. I'm like, dang, like, are you like, how much teaching have you actually done, kind of thing. Anyways, I don't want to get too deep into that, but appreciate you guys sharing your insights on what you guys think about the whole YouTube creator, like golf lesson, I guess phenomenon, because it's getting really popular, like the TikToks, the Instagrams, it's everywhere. It's crazy.
If I got to see one more video where somebody does this with their finger, I'm over it. Right.
Oh,
I'm really over it.
This?
Yeah.
No, do
yeah.
that.
I can't take it. I'm not, but then again, I'm not out there to be a content. I'd rather have you like in person. I'm sure I could do great work over video, or I'd rather have it like watching you on some sort of live stream to explain it to you, right? Because if you just show me pictures of where you're at, I don't know what got you to the picture. There's 8 different ways that you can get there. How did you get there? I need to know how you got there, because you can show one screenshot of a swing and you're like, that looks phenomenal, but how they got there was terrible, right? And then that's what we're trying to figure out.
Got it. So general consensus, like, yeah, the people who ask these questions, they want to know if it hurts or hinders a student's swing progress. More likely it will hurt or hinder, but there is that off chance that it could help. But
when people talk to me about that and they go, well, what do you think of, I've watched these videos or whatever, I will at least say, hey, look at this person's Instagram. Look at this person's Instagram. Follow this person. They're more aligned with what I'm trying to get you to do.
Sure.
Right? Because there's certain people out there that are.
Okay, sure. So last thing that I wanted to touch on, and I can see them around the room here, and then I was talking to Craig before we started filming, swing training aids. So the question was, are they a gimmick? Are they helpful? And if they are helpful, do you guys have any favorites? So we'll start off with Craig. Any, and I guess the theme here is that we've been hearing is that it depends. And, you guys have the wherewithal to apply them to a certain swing. But anyone in particular that stands out to you in terms of a notable swing training aid?
I mean, I think swing training aids are great. I think that, the instructor needs to know if it applies to the person. And if it's a training aid that's maybe too advanced, I'm not going to put a beginner golfer on, Body Tracker Swing Catalyst.
Sure.
We're not there yet, not even close. I'm probably not going to put them, like on a PlaneMate. I think, though, what Martin Chuck and David Woods have come up with a lot of the Tour Striker equipment has been phenomenal. The Smart Ball, the PlaneMate, some of the other stuff, the clicker. I like what some of the stuff that George Genkus has come out with the G boxes and the clicker and the shallower. I think that, it does have, you have to figure out if it applies to the student and if it's something that they're ready for yet.
So that's kind of like the main thing. Like, yes, swing training aids, they can be useful, but whether or not like that one is good for you, or like how you should be using that, but you're probably better off coming to teaching professionals to say, hey, I got this one for you. I think it's going to fit the swing or what we're trying to achieve. And that's more effective than me just like kind of like the YouTube videos, randomly believing and hoping that if I buy a swing training aid, I'm going to magically start getting better. So
they just buy it and they don't even know if it's for them.
Yeah,
they just buy it because it's out.
Guilty. Definitely, that's something that before I started taking lessons from Matt, I would just buy like the Genghis G boxes, and it's like, hey, maybe rotational, is not my issue, so that I probably wouldn't be gaining much benefit from that.
But again, going back to understanding how to use it, whether it fits you, right?
Yeah.
Like there's certain things out there that you can get that you can make the move, and let's say you don't hit the box or you get the thing to click at the right time, and you can do it completely the wrong way, but the feedback still says, hey, I did it right? So having that, I'm a big fan of stations that force you to do what you need to do, and it's instant feedback. I hit the noodle, I didn't hit the noodle, right? I was here, I have to, like, it's because, again, we've talked about this before. What your golf swing looks like and what it feels like are two completely different things. So I need you to feel what it is and then validate that with the camera to say, look, here's what it felt like, here's what it looked like. That's what I need you to take in, right? To do that with when you're using, I use a lot of just alignment tools to make sure that I'm putting, like I said, stations together. You're swinging over this, you're not hitting this, so it just puts you in and it gives you a particular feel. Right. I do. Like, I have the plain mate and the G box and the shallower and the, because it's going to work for somebody. My favorite probably right now is that Total Golf Trainer, right? Where you get all the little, I love the wrist one where it puts a red foam on the back, right? Which just holds that angle of that right wrist. Because that, dumping that angle early, it is, I get 85% of the people who come here. That's what they do. It's part of that early extension.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So I think that's kind of the appreciative insight that we will get from asking two people like you. It's not really, the miracle. There is no miracle piece of equipment that will get you to apply to your swing. You kind of have to come to you guys to figure that out and how to play.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just the only one. Maybe I'm not that good. But I can take a smart ball. Love the smart ball, right?
That's
but I can. You just put it in between your arms, right?
Yeah.
But I can still swing straight over the top.
True.
It's how do you apply it, right? Are you applying it the right way?
The question is, why are you doing it?
True. Yeah. And I feel like people, and same thing how we talk about gear. People love new stuff and that hope of it, improving your swing, and so they'll go out and buy all these things to say, oh yeah, everyone's getting these kind of results, but if you don't apply it in the way that you guys know how to apply it, then it's could be almost detrimental, to say the least. So okay, so that being said, yeah, super appreciative having both of you on and answering the questions from the community. I'll put everyone's socials into the description. Join the Discord. That's where I got all these questions from. That being said, hope you guys enjoyed that one. Keep chasing, and we'll see you in the next one.